Welcome. My name is Lorenz. This is System Self. This show is about awareness in action. How do we bring more consciousness and humanity into the world? And today we're talking about holding space. What does this mean? How do you do it? And why is it important? I want to start with the difference between knowledge and being. Think of a book that you've read that has been really meaningful to you. A book that you've read more than once. The first time you read it, you got so much out of it. And then maybe you came back to it a few years later and noticed something new that you hadn't noticed the first time. Realized that the author is actually saying something much deeper than you thought the first time you read it. That's the difference between knowledge and being. What you got out of the book the first time, that's knowledge. Your capacity to be more aware of what was in that content, that's being. Because think about it, what changed? Did the book change? No. Did the words change? No. What changed was your awareness of what was in those words. It's very difficult to define being because being is like an empty container. Its primary attribute is that it contains something. Its ability to contain whatever is put inside it, the knowledge that you put inside it. And it's very easy to confuse the knowledge for the being, to become identified with what's inside the container. There's a difference between knowing and knowledge. See, knowing is like a bridge between being and knowledge. You think of a river, right? You have the riverbed and you have the water flowing down the river. And so the riverbed you could think of as being. It's the container for that knowledge, for the experience of what's flowing down it. And knowledge is that water flowing down. And your finger is knowing, right? You put it in the water and you have the experience of that. And you could say, I know this river. But do you really know the river? Because the water that you touched is way downstream right after you touch it. So what do you know? Because the river's constantly changing. And similarly, life is constantly changing. The people around us are constantly changing. The situation around us are constantly changing. Everything is constantly changing. So what do you know, right? You receive information and that becomes part of the knowledge inside the container of your being. But it's very easy to become attached to that knowledge, to begin to see that knowledge as the way that things are, to imagine that the river isn't actually flowing, but it's frozen. But it isn't, because it is flowing. And when we become attached to that, we begin to project our definitions and expectations of people and situations. We are no longer receptive to what's there, right? And this concept of the container of being receiving, right? It's constantly empty and it's constantly receiving, and knowing is that process of receiving. And so it's almost like a Zen koan. To truly know something, you have to not know it. Because knowing isn't something that happens once and it's over. It's a continuous experience, just like your finger in the river. Right? So to truly know something, you have to not know it. You have to be open to it as it's emerging. And this is this concept of beginner's mind. That you always approach something with this childlike wonder. And this is holding space, right? It's in the term itself, holding space, an empty container. How do you truly get to know something? You hold space for it to emerge as it is, not as you expect it to be. And very often in many interactions, and this is so natural, so easy, we put ourselves into that interaction. It becomes all about us. Think about maybe you've had a conversation with a partner and your partner has told you that something that you did upset them, and automatically you become defensive and you start telling them about all the things that they did to upset you. The conversation becomes all about you when it started about them. This is the opposite of holding space. And what is missed out on here is subtle, because it's not just that this person in the situation wasn't held space for. You weren't holding space for yourself, right? Whatever might be coming up there, the guilt, the shame, the anger, whatever is triggering you, all of those things are coming up within you, and holding space for that is a way to get to know yourself, to examine these things without reacting, with equanimity, to really see what is new inside that book that is yourself, because you've read it the first time and this is how you are, but that's just not how it is, because how you are is also constantly evolving and changing, and your ability to hold space for that, to begin to examine your default reactions, to begin to examine the things that are coming up for you, and most powerfully, to do so with another person, with vulnerability and openness. That is transformation. That's the power of holding space, is that we can begin to live life more fully with what's actually there, begin to know people as they are. Holding space isn't a passive condition. You can think, okay, well, I'm just going to be detached from what this person is saying and hold space for it. But think of a child inside a mother's womb. That's holding space in a very powerful and intimate way. It's a condition of absolute support, right? The mother isn't directing what is emerging inside her, but she is absolutely supportive of that process. It's incredibly intimate. And similarly with another person, holding space can be incredibly intimate. What responsibility do you have for the expression of another person? It seems counterintuitive. Of course, it's that person's responsibility to express themselves, but what responsibility do you have to create the conditions for that expression to emerge most fully, to reach its full potential? And that's the potential and the power of every single interaction that we have with another person, is to support that other person to express whatever is inside them, not just for their benefit, but for our benefit, for the benefit of the interaction and whatever might be emerging there. And that comes through with holding space, with really taking this understanding to a deeper level, because of course holding space starts with not interrupting the other person and trying not to think of what we're going to say as a response to the other person before they've finished saying, and just being fully present to what they're saying, and maybe taking a few breaths as they're speaking to just be conscious and fully there, and maybe taking a breath before you respond to make sure that the person has finished saying what they're saying, because it's so easy, especially in an excited or a heated conversation, to want to respond. And it's very powerful to hold space for that. But beyond that, there's the second level of really supporting the interaction. What does this interaction call for to fully support its emergence? And of course, this is different from interaction to interaction. This is different with every person and every situation. What might be appropriate with one person might be completely inappropriate with another person. And this is where you can bring discernment, but an intention to support a conversation, to support a person, to make it not confrontational or competitive or who's more intelligent, but to make it collaborative, to really see that as a subtle collaboration, your responsibility in holding space for whatever might be emerging there. And it's a way of getting to know the other person more deeply, and it's a way of getting to know yourself more deeply, because these things come up whether we're being triggered or something is making us really happy and excited. And can we hold space for that, to really experience it and to know it more deeply, and to know ourselves and to be with life more deeply? That is holding space, and that is transformation. All right, my friends, this is System Self, and my commitment to you is subtle insights that deliver significant changes. I look forward to our conversations in the future. Please share this video, like it. Much love.